You may have read today that, and you probably talked about Chancellor Merkel in Germany saying that our tough trade stance could cause an international financial crisis, which would be laughable if it wasn't so disingenuous. Right now, with Germany, we have nearly a $70 billion goods trade deficit, and then they underspend on defense by another $40 billion. So basically, American taxpayers and American workers are giving Germany and Merkel a gift of $100 billion a year.
If they can get some sort of a deal on trade that is more favorable to America, as President Trump has been pushing, I would expect, and you know the markets better than I, that that's going to be a major development in a positive direction.
Well, it is positive if we can reach agreements that are good for our country and that are going to bring back a substantial portion, if not all, of the jobs that have been sucked out of our country. You know, you alluded to China, a $400 billion goods trade deficit, which is, 2 million at least well-paying American jobs. And Ed, the reason this is so important is that a job is not just a production input, which unfortunately is how too many people on Wall Street and too many of their lackeys in the political world approach it. A job is life.
Yes.
And when you have more well-paying American jobs, you have less family violence, you have less addiction, you have less crime, you have healthier communities. So this could be the greatest social program in a generation for our country.
Actually,
but through the private sector,
creating jobs instead of just handing out money, handing out assistance. Lee Spieckerman bringing us some important facts.
This importing and offshoring orgy that we've had over the past 20 years has imploded middle-class incomes. If we had an adversary that wanted to weaken the United States, and their plan was to do that, what better way than to destroy millions of our manufacturing jobs, implode our middle-class incomes, and ravage our inner cities? That's exactly what's happened since China entered the World Trade Organization in 2001. $360 billion trade deficit with China overall. Neil, that is more than twice, China's entire defense budget. So they are swimming in an ocean of lucre from the United States that they are using to fund their military adventurism, to fund the research that they're doing to overtake the United States as the world's technology leader, to fund their new colonialism, which is the massive lending they're doing to developing countries around the world to exact control and have leverage over them and undermine the United States and our allies. The nefarious trade strategy China has been employing and continues to employ has got to be stopped. And frankly, I think tariffs, not agreements, are the key to doing that.
A lot of people to this day, Lee, have no idea that for whatever reasons this goes into effect, they are going to pay for it. Maybe justifiably to make a statement and to deal with it, but they don't know what's coming. And should someone give them a heads up?
Neil, if we Americanize American manufacturing, if we re-domesticate our supply chain, it will create an explosion of investment. It will create an upsurge in American jobs and incomes. We are right now, Neil, almost in a disinflation in this country and throughout the developed world. They're worried that prices are not rising fast enough in this country. So we don't have to worry about inflation. What we have to worry about is that middle-income Americans have had stagnant or declining real incomes over the past 20 years. The overwhelming reason for that is the deindustrialization of America caused by these horrific trade deals that have been made, which has also decimated the African-American middle class in northern industrial cities. That was the ladder to the middle class for African-Americans that fled the Jim Crow South after World War II. And here, after one generation, because of this deindustrialization, we decimated our inner cities and decimated so many other millions of jobs around the country and imploded American incomes. When you have this leakage of incomes, when people can source goods in China for $5 an hour, workers making $5 an hour or less, that has a tremendously deleterious effect on American workers. How can American workers bargain for fair wages and get fair recompense when they're competing with that? It's atrocious. It's got to be stopped.
Well, you're assuming a trade deal with China. You're assuming a trade deal with China is going to do that, but we'll see. All right? We'll see.
No, a deal won't do it. I think it won't do it. I agree with you. China cheats. China cheats, unfortunately. And the only way we're going to deal with that is with a permanent tariff. Look at pickup trucks, Neil. Neil, that is one of the greatest economic successes in our country. We've had a 25% tariff on pickup truck imports since the 1960s. And look at it, 3 of the top selling vehicles in our country, the 3 top selling, are pickup trucks. Thousands of well-paid American workers at U.S. and Asian-owned plants making pickup trucks. It's a boon for our economy. We need to extend that across the board to all automobiles, all manufactured goods. People say that mandating an increase in the minimum wage is some kind of leftist or socialist idea. Quite the contrary. I'll tell you what's leftism and socialism is making people more dependent on federal, social, and state social welfare programs. And right now, with people underemployed, and Charlie Gasparino mentioned it in the last segment, when you have people that are making a wage, but it is not sufficient to lift them out of poverty, they then become reliant, either themselves or through their family members, on social welfare programs. Guess who pays for those social welfare programs? Other companies that pay a higher wage, and us as taxpayers. How is that fair, or how is that conservative? We have got to encourage work and encourage people to get off of social welfare. In 1968, in today's dollars, the minimum wage was $12 an hour. Well, what a coincidence. $12 an hour is just about what it takes to be at the very bottom of the middle class in the United States. It's about $26,000 a year to be in the bottom of the middle class, and that's a little more than $12 an hour. And that would be a logical starting point. Now, I will say, if we raise the minimum wage, which I think we should, we've got to do it a smart way. Number one, it should be based on metropolitan areas. Obviously, it costs dramatically more to live in the Bay Area of California or New York City than it does in Jackson, Mississippi, or Dayton, Ohio. So the minimum wage should be based on and weighted based on local metropolitan cost of living in the metropolitan statistical areas. But number two, we have got to have a differential, a lower minimum wage for teenagers who do not have children as dependents, because we've got to get especially disadvantaged minorities in this country on that first rung of the ladder for their career. And that means we need to encourage employers to get them on the payroll, to train them, to get them in the workforce. That's crucial. We've got to start encouraging work and encouraging higher middle class incomes in this country, which have been in a downward vortex because of our horrible trade deals and other bad government policies. We have a lot of underemployed people in this country, and I think doing a smart minimum wage increase with a lower teen differential and basing it on metropolitan areas is the way to do it, and that is conservative. It is not leftist or socialist.
Well spoken. Leo Riddle wrapped in a conundrum. Always appreciate it, my friend. Lee Spieckerman.